Everybody. Just have to hit continue. Hi, thanks for joining me. I am super excited to hop on with Michael's again today and show you guys how I made something. This time I'm going to show you guys how I made a very cool, very colorful cape. It's a cape slash a cloak. It's whatever your kid wants it to be. And there's a few really interesting caveats as to how I made this project, which I think you guys might enjoy. So I am not a super detail-oriented person. I don't want to measure. I don't really want to pin. It's not my style, but I know that I love sewing and I like cutting and I like fabric. So it all just kind of comes together this way. I made this cape for my daughter for Halloween. She has been dying to be a witch and I figured let's do this. But because I was going to put time and effort into making a cape or cloak for her, I didn't want it to just be kind of like, you know, shoehorned as Halloween and Halloween only. So I made one in colorful colors with a bit of a thicker material so that she could wear it all year round when she plays dress up. She can be a magician. She can be a character in Frozen. She can be a witch. She can be whatever she wants. But point being, she has a lovely handmade, homemade cape cloak to wear it with. So a couple things you're going to need for today's project. But before I do that, Holly from Fiskars is going to be in the chat answering any questions. She'll flag things down for me in case I miss a question. Today, because the project is sewing based, I have most of the tutorial happening here, but my face is obviously here to answer questions and speak. So let me know if you have any questions and I'm happy to get started. So what do you need? You need a sewing machine, which I have just off screen right here, a sewing machine. You can buy those at Michael's, obviously. It's a super basic machine, nothing fancy. It literally sews, I think, 4 stitches, and that's all I need for this project. I've got my Fiskars fabric shears. They come with the sheath. They're nice and sharp, nice and long. They give a clean cut. You can't ask for more when you're working with fabric. I've got a little bit of ribbon. In the cape I made for my daughter, I also used Rickrack around the edges, but here's the fun bit. Because this project doesn't actually involve measuring anything, I made it based off an article of clothing that she had, because I knew it would fit her the most precisely that way. So this is not my daughter's clothing. This is actually a doll's clothing. She already has a cape. She doesn't need to. So I figured I'd make one for you guys on a smaller scale, so that it would be easier to see contained on this cutting mat, also from Fiskars, but so that she could have a matching one with her dad doll. And I thought that was a great way to go about it. So if you are confused as to why I am referencing a very small sweater, that is why it's a doll's. So I've got the doll sweater. I've got 2 pieces of fabric. Now, Michael sells fabric. These were 2 pieces that I already had on hand. I am an extensive fabric hoarder. I see pretty things. I buy them in a couple of yards and I sit on them until I have the perfect project. And this was one of them. So if you don't have any fabric, I highly suggest you go to Michael's and check out what they've got. I don't know if you'll find boiled wool there. That's what this is. I got it in this lovely yellow color and it matches this beautiful floral print here that also has some yellow in it. I don't know how well you can see that on camera, but I thought these were a great compliment. This is a lining really just to make sure that she's not getting scratched up with the wool, but the wool is nice and heavy. So here in Canada, she could actually wear this cloak out for Halloween and not catch too much of a chill as long as she's got a long sleeve shirt on. I've also got this lovely cutting mat. You could use pins if you wanted. There are some parts where you might want to pin the material. I also used a glue gun to apply Rickrack at a later point along the outside, as you can see here on her actual cloak. And I also added some play stars. But in the interest of time, because neither of those 2 points are super technical, it's literally a hot glue gun, I figured I'd take you guys through the actual construction of the cape today. So I'm going to put this cape to the side and we're going to get started. Any questions before I do start?
Not so far.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to move my ribbon to the side. I'm going to move my lining piece to the side and I'm going to open up the fabric. So I'm going to start by making one big piece of her cloak. That is going to be the outside and then the inside lining. Okay. And since I said this is a project where I'm not actually going to measure, I'm going to show you how I did this. I like a nice big billowy cape, okay? So when I measured on her sweater, I knew that if I made the cape at least this wide, it would fit her. But you want it to wrap around, so it's this ×2, split down the middle, so about to here. And then I added the length of the sleeve just to give it a nice overhang, right? You want this thing to billow, you want it to have some movement, you want them to be able to grow into it. So I figured a cape that was the size of a shirt with her sleeves extended was the correct width. And then for height, I did from the collar to the bottom of the shirt. And if you want to add a collar, you can, but since I'm going to add an extra sort of wraparound cloak element on the outside, which I'll show you in a minute, I didn't add too much height. I don't want this cape to be hitting the ground on her. Any questions, or are we good?
Good so far.
Perfect. Okay, so I know you can cut 2 pieces of fabric at the same time, but I really found this easier to cut one at a time. So I'm going to remove the liner and the sweater. I'm going to go based on this. I don't know if you can tell, I'm actually cutting with the inside of the cloak out. So this is the more unfinished inside part of the fabric, and this is the nicer outside. So I've put the nicer side facing down like that. And the reason I do all my cutting on the cutting mat is number one, I live in a house with a kid. Surfaces aren't always clean, but I know my cutting mat is always clean. And number two, the shears are nice, right? I don't want to be dinging up my surface underneath, and I don't want my surface to ding up the scissors. So it's a happy medium. Since I started using a cutting mat, I have had 0 regrets. It's not just for rotary cutters or circle cutters. If you don't have one, I highly suggest you get one. This one folds up, by the way, for easy storage. You can see kind of this scallop down the middle. It's how it folds. Highly recommend. Okay, so my piece is there. We're gonna cut. Oh, disclaimer. Because this cape is pretty freeform and there is a lot of movement to it. If you don't have a perfectly straight edge at the bottom, it's not the end of the world. This is the type of thing that we can correct once we get to sewing or after. It's not a huge deal. So once again, the sheaths come off. Look how sharp those are. I'm going to start by cutting from all the way back here so it comes into focus for you guys. Once again, this is not a sewing project if you require exact measurements. I like to freeform it. It's just who I am as a person. It's my critical flaw. So yeah, I am encountering little to no resistance in this boiled wool, which you think would be. My sewing machine had a bit of a harder time with it, but the scissors glide through it perfectly. And you can see there's a bit of fuzz on there, so just make sure you remove it after before you sheath them. Good scissors will give you as good a return as you keep them clean. And look at that, this extra piece is perfect. It's gonna come in handy later. Gonna fold it up, put it off to the side. So I'm actually gonna straighten this out here just so I can see a bit better. Okay, looking pretty good. Gonna do some visual cleaning up here to make sure it's straight. There are guides on the cutting mat to follow, but since I'm not chalking this up or adding any lines to it, I'm just going to freeform it. There we go. Looking pretty good. Okay, I am now going to remove the sweater and cut a matching piece from what will be the lining. Just flipped it inside out there. Now I know some people like to have the exact precise bits when they start. I am going to cut my liner with a bit of an overhang so that I can focus on sewing really straight lines, and then I can trim any excess. I find that if you cut everything exactly to match and then your stitch line gets a little sloppy or you start to deviate, you have less of a forgiving seam line. And because this is a project for people who are measuring and who just kind of want to make it on the go, that's not really our style. So we're going to leave some space and account for errors. Okay. Once again, just cutting down. And of course, these shears are making quick work of this simple cotton. I know that you can wash fabric before you sew with it. I don't really think that the boiled wool is something you would wash quite like that. You can absolutely wash the cotton. You can absolutely iron it. I know that's a more proper way of doing it, but once again, just not my style. And I know I'm not the only one who likes a more forgiving form of sewing. I'm pretty sure my own skills will get better as I go with time, but for the moment, this is just kind of how I sew, and I make projects that work for me, right? Okay, any questions so far?
Still good to go.
Cool, okay, so I've got my 2 pieces. I've got the nice side of my boiled wool up here. If I flip it over, I've got the nice side of my cotton print here. I'm gonna sew them together, but because my yellow piece is smaller, I'm gonna sew with it on top, okay? So let me just move this over and get my sewing machine. Okay, I happen to have a yellow thread already loaded. I'm plugged in. Let me just do a quick test to make sure everything's working the way I want it to. I always forget about the button on the side. Perfect. So if you are sewing with this type of material for the first time, I recommend you try sewing on like a test piece. You want to make sure that your tension is correct. You want to make sure that the color of your thread is good. I don't know about you, but I can't really see the thread on here. So that tells me it is the perfect color. The stitches look good on both sides, so the tension's correct. I think I'm good to go. I'm going to toss that little scrap over. I know some people are absolute purists when it comes to pinning and sewing. Have at her. I have actually broken needles on my sewing machine trying to do that. So bear with me while I sew this. And you can always double back your stitches at the beginning or at the end. I like to do them at the end. And you know what, like my daughter will appreciate the fact that I made her cape more than the fact that the seam line is super straight. That's kind of how I'm approaching it. I will spend more time on other types of projects, but this is literally a cape for her doll. So perfection can only go so far. Okay, there's that end. I'm gonna snip it. I know some people can like turn their piece while they're sewing. I have never done that successfully without jamming up my needle. And because I don't want to jam up my sewing machine while doing a recorded class, I'm going to do this the safe way. And then always use the foot from your sewing machine as a way to make sure that you're kind of in line with the edge of your fabric. Just in case you've never done this and this is your first sort of quote lazy sewing project. See, there we go. Now, let me just, humor me while I talk about sewing here. I have always loved the idea of sewing, but just because of how I work and operate and stuff, I've been daunted by the complexity of some of the tasks. And I found that breaking things down into really easy to learn skills has been a great way to do it for me. So if that's where you're at as well, start simple. There is no harm in starting small. Little overzealous with the pedal. Sorry, guys. Let's make sure it's going. Yeah. Always check your thread. I've had my bottom thread run out a few times and not noticed it until I've like done an entire length. So it never hurts to check. And really this cape is about sewing a few straight lines. It's nothing fancy. So let's make sure we get those lines well. Wind the needle up. One more side, guys. Now in the blog post that I've got up on my site, so pmq42.com, I detail how I added some really cute darts to the cape just to give it some extra shape in the front. I'll be able to let those out at a later point if she outgrows the cape and we still want to keep it. But in this case, for her doll, I will not be adding any, just for the interest of time. All right. Okay. Move my sewing machine back to the side. So I've got the inside, the outside, and now I'm going to trim all this excess using my shears. While we do that, I'm going to ask again if there are any questions or concerns, any hot takes someone wants to share. I'm all ears.
Great crowd so far.
Tough crowd, tough crowd. With my luck, this will be a whole bunch of sewing pros. I don't know how many of you were around for my beeswax food wrap tutorial, but that went over really well. And I've since made a sandwich bag or two using the same technique. So if you are a regular in the Michael's online classes, you'll have to check that one out on their YouTube channel, as well as all the other recordings of the other classes. Once again, you can be as detail oriented as you'd like. This is a cape for a doll. One more side. Now I know sometimes the fabric, especially cotton, like woven pieces like this, after a certain point, you can just sort of pull the fabric apart. That has never gone well for me. So if that's one of your skills, just like pulling fabric and having it rip perfectly, congratulations, but thank goodness there are scissors in the meantime, right? Okay, so we've got the base of the cape here. Remember that scrap I told you we were going to use? We're coming back to it. So it happens to be the same length, which is perfect. What we are going to do, we're going to fold it in half. And what we're going to draw is like a curved end here. I don't think I need her kind of like capelet to be as wide as this. So I'm going to, or the doll. So I'm going to cut it in half, or like 2/3. And I don't know about you, but I always keep all my fabric scraps because I end up using them for other things later. Okay, so we've got this. Just fold that out of the way. Going to make sure that these lines are a little more straight, but I'm going to use a disposable coffee cup lid to kind of like trace the curve here at the end. I'm going to cut it even narrower actually. So in terms of other Halloween costumes that I've made for my daughter, for her first Halloween, she was a lamb and I was a shepherdess, which was cute. I dyed everything myself. It was adorable and matching, of course. And last year she was Pebbles from the Flintstones, and I was Wilma, and my husband was Fred. We love a good concept costume. Okay. See these ends like this? Now for this, you can use the lid of a Tupperware, a plate, whatever you want to get that half circle. I'm just going to clean up this end here. In case you can't tell, I like to approximate. So there we go. That's looking pretty good. What I'm going to do is here. So this is the outside of the cape. The whole point is to sew this like this so that when it's closed over the doll, it's like an extra little collar. Do you see how that's going to look like that? Yes? Cool. So what we're going to do, we're going to sew it like this. I'm just trying to remember really fast if I did it like that. No, I did it like this. Yeah. So we're going to sew this. Okay. Because I cut it just a bit shorter, I'm going to make sure it's centered. And now I'm going to sew along this top seam here. Okay. One straight line. Should be simple. In the meantime, I'm going to check in, see if there's any more questions.
You're good to go.
Now, the boiled wool is thick. We're not going to lie here. So doing test runs with your sewing machine ahead of time is always a good idea. This is not the type of project where I recommend you use like iron-on hemming or anything like that. I do love a good hack. This is not the time for that. It will not hold. Oh, and of course, there goes my thread. Don't you love when that happens on like a filmed course? Sorry guys, I'm just trying to rethread my my thread in here. Oh, hold on. Sorry guys. Okay, that's not working. Give me one other second. Oh, that's why. So if you guys are still with me, I highly encourage you to go check me out on Pinterest. I have got all kinds of ideas there. I can use my shears just to snip this little end of a wire here. Also check out my blog, come see what I'm up to. I have lots of easy quote sewing projects. So if you're just sort of figuring things out like myself and you want a place to learn, I've got some cool projects for you. Okay, so let's start this piece over. It's sewing, right? It's trial and error. You don't always win them. Almost done. Remember, you're not going past the end here, so I'm just going to do a quick little double back. The end. Okay, so other than sewing some little ribbon on, you're pretty much done sewing at this point, guys. I'm going to clean up some of my ends, and a cat might jump into screen shortly. Hope no one's scared of cats. Okay, so this is what it's looking like so far. The inside folded like this. Pretty cute. So I'll show you what that looks like on the doll right now, just so you can get an idea of scale. So let me fold it for you guys. I'd say that is a very generous cape, wouldn't you? Doo, doo, doo. He's waving. So let's finish this up. If I was actually going to give this version to my daughter, I would probably trim this end shorter and then resew it, just because I can see that there's a discrepancy in the lengths on these two. But while this is a class and a tutorial and we're doing this live, I don't really think you guys want to see me do that. Totally fair. So we're going to move on to the next step. We're going to add the tie. I'm also going to talk you guys through some other steps I considered doing on my daughters, and I may still do. So I put the cloak around her, and I looked at where her hands fell. Her hands fell kind of about here. So I considered cutting slits so that she could stick her arms out, like her hands, and actually hold her trick-or-treat bag or whatnot. And if I had done that, I would then sew around the outside of the slit so that she could still get her hands in and just be fine like that. I may still do it though. So if you wanted to add buttons or whatnot, this would be a great time to do it. And if you're going to add buttons, this overhang would be totally fine. You know, you'd add your buttons over here and then you would just sort of plop them over like that, but there are no buttons. So we're going to use some ribbon to make a little tie. Going to say that that is enough ribbon to tie a nice bow on each side. I'm going to cut that. So answer me this, guys. When you cut your ribbon, do you cut it in a point like this, or do you cut the little indentations like this? I'm always dying to know what other people do. Obviously a cleaner version of that, but do you do that or do you do the edge? I love the edge. It's going to clean up this other side. Now I'm going to cut it in half and sew it. Boop. Okay. Any questions so far? I see the chat count has increased by 2, so I'm hoping that means there's a question.
Someone shared that they cut on the diagonal edge.
So there we go, I'm not alone. So for sewing this, I'm obviously going to sew the flat end in here, just inside the inside of the lapel. You can sew it further down if you'd like. You can sew it up here. Obviously, if you sew it up here, it means that as the person moves around, the tension will kind of rest around where the ribbon ties the 2 pieces together. So that could be their neck. On a kid, they may not like that. You may want to place the ribbon further down so that it lands more on their chest. But those are things you can figure out for yourself and change, right? It's sewing, nothing is forever. Okay, we're going to sew these 2 on. If I do another sewing project, I'm absolutely going to get a camera so you guys can see what I'm doing at the needle level. Here we go. Pretty impressed with myself there. I just sewed an N. See that? Boop. Go me. Sometimes I see videos of people with like the most insane professional sewing skills, and I'm just like, wow, you must have spent a lot of time on your machine learning how to do that. And I think this is where these projects come in, honestly. Like, where else are you going to learn? You're going to learn by making something with love, right? Okay, guys, last sew of the project. And I go super slow on these little bits, otherwise it's easy to kind of zip past and not know it. And while nothing is forever, you also don't want to ruin your project. Okay, sewing machine back off. I'm going to clean up my ends. This is where nice little scissors come in mind. Of course, you can always buy little snips from Fiskars. They have little ones that are almost like tweezers that you can use to pinch and cut. I don't do nearly enough sewing projects to warrant a set of those, but your shears will do the trick. So do you guys want to watch me try to sew Rickrack on, or do you want to take it for a fact that you can just hot glue it? Let me know in the comment section.
I think it's your call.
My call? Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm going to grab some Rickrack. Okay, I'm back. I've got some pink. It's cute. In an ideal world, I would have pink thread that I could use so that you don't see a huge line, but I've only got pink, so I'm going to give a slightly different treatment. Instead of going around this beautiful lapel situation here, I'm just going to go down the front of it like that on both sides. Sound good? So Rickrack's a funny one. This is a big Rickrack by all standards. They come bigger, they also come much smaller. You'll see that on this piece, I've got a nice kind of ability to sew down the center because it's so big. If it was smaller, your ability to sew down the center would be drastically reduced and you'd probably have to follow the zigs of everything. But because this is big, I have the ability to go down the center. I'm going to just cut a second matching piece. Boop. We're going to sew it. So once again, you can pin all of this to your heart's content. That's just not my vibe. All right, so I've got basically the center of the Rickrack lined up with my needle there. I've put the foot down. We're going to start. Going slowly. And I'm making sure to go slow and really go down the center here. And then speed it up at the end. There we go. Okay. You know when your machine does that like trippy noise, it means a thread's caught somewhere. So I'm gonna have to clean up the back end there, but well, of course, something else is happening with my machine. There we go. Sorry guys, one more side. And you know what, would you believe that my first sewing project was actually a Roman blind for our kitchen? I punched way above my ability with that one, and it still came out okay. So the sky's the limit with sewing. Okay, last piece. Once again, taking the time to line that up and going slowly. Done. Okay, now because I used a color that matched the underlying fabric and not the rickrack, you can kind of see a yellow line, but that's looking pretty cute. Remember to trim up all your ends here. Boop, there we go. So let's compare this to the shirt before we put it on, because we're essentially done here. Here's that original shirt. Pretty close, eh? How do you guys feel about the shirt method? I know there are way more scientific and accurate versions that involve patterns, but I have never been able to figure out a pattern. So this felt pretty good to me. Look, it's an exact fit. It's perfect. I'll take this off. If I was to gift this to my daughter, I would probably iron this just so all these little lines are out. But I think this is looking pretty good for a live class. I'm gonna take the doll and wrap him up. And just in case you were wondering, yes, I will give him his sweater back. It is winter in Canada, or it is about to be winter in Canada after all. Oh my goodness, I can sew on camera, but can I tie a bow? There you go. So there you have it. Doo, doo, doo. A kid's cape or a doll's cape, however you want to put it. I would love to hear from you guys if you have any questions. You can obviously find me on all of the major social medias. I am PMQ42 literally everywhere. That's my email address. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'd love to see this costume if you make a version for your own kids or their dolls. And I just like to keep in touch with people anyways. I'm a social person. So before I let you guys go, are there any questions? Anything going on in the chat there, Holly?
Not so far, but I'm thinking that we're going to need to see a picture of June and a doll together on social soon.
I think that's doable. I will take the time to like clean up the collar on this one, and I'll add all kinds of little details, maybe some matching stars. I might even have to make a matching witch hat. For those who are curious, this is a doll that looks exactly like her dad. We had it when my husband was away for a while, and it serves her very well. It's her daddy doll.
I'm going to request that you make a red beard for her to wear too.
That's the thing I can do, absolutely. Thanks for bearing with me with my super imprecise sewing class. I know that I am not the only one who has to tackle projects this way. So I hope that if this was useful for you, that you check out my other kind of like unprecise people who don't like to measure World of Sewing projects. Cool. All right, guys. See you later.